Jules kept the laptop open on the coffee table, screen throwing a pale wash across the room. The apartment stayed quiet after midnight in a way that pressed on him if he let it. So he moved between tabs just to keep the place from tipping into that stillness. Fan running, chat feeds rolling, a steady line of strangers talking into the void. Enough noise to work with. A coffee mug from 3 days ago sat on the side table, ring dried into the wood underneath it. He kept meaning to move it. He kept not moving it. He cycled through a few live streams until he landed on a paranormal channel. The streamer pushed through an abandoned building with a shaky camera and a flashlight that dimmed at the edges. Audio crackled. The hallways on screen looked like an old hospital, long and stripped down, doors gone from half the frames. Only a few viewers lingered in the chat, mostly complaining about buffering. Jules typed into the box. "This place looks like it still has people in it." Hit enter. The message slotted itself between a donation alert and someone griping about the camera angle. Then the line stuttered, broke apart, dropped from the feed. He leaned in closer to the screen, the way he did when he didn't quite trust what he'd just seen. Typed again. "Seriously, it looks like someone's still there." Enter. The text loaded, held a second, then the characters blinked out, replaced by a clean gap in the scroll. No scroll lag, no ghost outline, nothing to mark where it had been. He tried something neutral, testing it. Cool stream. Enter. Same result. The text appeared, then vanished from the scroll entirely. No trace, no scroll back. Nothing a refresh should be able to fix, and he refreshed the page anyway. The chat repopulated without a single one of his posts in it. He typed one more, a real test this time. "Hello?" Enter. The word appeared, a beat passed, long enough that he almost looked away. Then the audio cut, not faded, cut. The way a plug gets pulled, true silence for maybe half a second, and into it something screamed through the speakers. One raw burst of noise with no source, so loud his hand jerked from the volume key on pure reflex, missed it, hit backspace instead. His heart slammed once, hard, against his sternum. The stream's audio picked back up mid-sentence, like nothing had happened. The streamer still narrating the hallway, oblivious. Jules sat with his hand still on the trackpad, breathing through his mouth, waiting for his pulse to come back down out of his throat. The word on the screen fractured, compression artifacts chewing through the edges, pixels breaking into blocks. The line warped, reassembled, and locked into a new text. "We see you." Jules kept his eyes on the screen, waiting for the chat to react, for anyone else to say something about it. Nothing shifted. The feed rolled on with the same slow trickle of comments about the flashlight and the buffering, like the scream had happened in a room none of them were in. Static cut through the audio again, thinner this time. Jules sat very still, aware of his own breathing in a way he usually wasn't. aware of the chair underneath him and the mug on the side table, and how loud the apartment had gotten without anyone raising their voice. The hair on his forearms stood up before his mind caught up to why. He closed the tab, closed the browser, reached to shut the laptop, and just before the lid came down, the dead black of the screen threw back a reflection of the room behind him. The lamp, the window, the dark doorway to the kitchen. A shape stood in the doorway that wasn't in the door frame, there for one frame and gone by the time the lid clicked shut. So fast, he couldn't have said if it was ever there at all. His body answered the question before his brain did anyway. Ice down both arms, spine locked straight. He didn't turn around to check the kitchen. He told himself that was because it was stupid, not because some older, stupider part of him didn't want an answer. The room went dark. The words stayed with him anyway. We see you. He pushed up off the couch and paced the length of the living room, hands moving through his hair, then stopped near the window and made himself sit back down, opened the laptop again, half expecting the battery to have died just to give him an excuse not to. The screen lit up instead. A new tab waited there he hadn't opened. The title bar read, The Watching Room. His hand hovered over the trackpad longer than it needed to. He clicked. The page loaded in slow, uneven strips, the browser struggling to assemble the image. A live stream window filled the center. No thumbnail, no title, just a black screen and a chat box. Viewer count 1. Jules typed, "Who is this?" Enter. The message appeared, thinned at the edges, broke into blocks, dissolved. A new line formed in its place. Hello again. Jules watched the box, cursor blinking. The stream flickered, compression artifacts crawling across the black screen in uneven waves. He snapped the laptop shut without deciding to. Silence. Then a faint tapping from inside the device. Tap, tap, tap. Too steady for a fan, too even for anything mechanical, like keys pressed one at a time by somebody with nowhere else to be. Jules stepped back, eyes locked onto the closed lid, calf muscles tight like he might actually run. His breath fogged, faint but real, a thin gray curl in air that had been warm enough 5 minutes ago that he'd had the window cracked. He didn't check the thermostat. He didn't want the number. The tapping stopped. A notification pinged from inside the machine. He reached out, hand not quite steady, and lifted the lid. The stream was still open. The chat box held a new line. Jules, why did you close the door? He typed, thumb catching the wrong key twice before he got it right. What door? Enter. The one you just shut. The black stream window shifted again, ripples sliding across the dark frame. Another line. Come back. He moved the cursor. Nothing. He reached for the lid and the hinge held firm. Tension locked it like something had wedged it shut from the inside. The tapping started again, fast now, even, a rhythm that matched keystrokes almost exactly. The chat filled in a rapid scroll. Come back, come back, come back. Jules hit the power button. The screen brightened instead of dying. The black window sharpened, pixels tightening into a shape. Something pressed close to the surface from the other side of it. Features forming out of the artifact blocks, losing shape, reforming into something with too many angles to be a face, though some older, stupider part of his brain kept trying to read a mouth into it anyway. The chat froze, then cleared. One line, "We're not done talking to you." Jules snapped the laptop shut hard enough that the crack of it echoed through the apartment. The tapping stopped. Nobody upstairs banged on the floor about the noise, and the quiet that followed didn't feel like relief. It just sat there, heavier than the tapping had been. His phone buzzed once against the wood. A text notification from a number with no name and no area code. He almost didn't look. He looked. Hello? One word, his own word, the one he'd typed into the livestream 20 minutes ago, sent back to him from nowhere. No sender ID, no way to reply. He set the phone down like it had gotten hot in his hand. He grabbed his keys off the hook by the door, told himself he just needed air, and pulled. The door didn't budge, not locked, not stuck, just wrong, resisting with no mechanical explanation for it, like the frame itself had swollen half an inch overnight. He put his shoulder into it, and it gave all at once, hard enough that he stumbled half a step into the hallway before he caught himself. He stood there a second, one hand still on the frame, and felt no urge at all to go any further than that. Whatever he'd wanted air for, he didn't want it anymore. He went back inside and put the chain on, feeling stupid and doing it anyway. He didn't open the laptop again for almost an hour, paced, ran water over a couple of dishes he didn't actually need to wash, scrolled his phone without absorbing a word of it. His eyes kept dragging back to the closed laptop, the one object in the room that seemed to be paying attention to him back. When he finally sat and lifted the screen, the laptop woke at once. No lag, no spinning wheel. The display already sitting there waiting for him. The watching room still filled the window. Black screen, empty chat. Cursor blinking in place. Viewer count 1. Welcome back. I didn't come back, he typed. I just opened the laptop. Enter. You returned. That is enough. Who are you? He typed. A pause, longer than the others. Then, letter by letter, unhurried, as though it wanted him watching each one arrive. We are listening. We have been for a long time. Jules held still, fingers suspended an inch above the keys. What do you want? He typed, just to see it answer. To talk. You used to speak more. You used to reach out. Then you stopped. Why? I don't know what you mean, he typed, and knew it wasn't true even as he sent it. You stopped reaching out to us. You also stopped reaching out to them. Daniel called you 4 times last month. You let it ring. Jules' stomach dropped through the floor. He hadn't told anyone that. He hadn't told the chat. He hadn't told the internet. He'd barely admitted it to himself, screening his own best friend's calls because picking up felt like more effort than he had some nights. "How do you know that?" he typed, and the keys felt cold under his fingers, colder than the room had any right to make them. "We told you. We read what gets sent. We also read what doesn't. A call you don't answer is still a message, Jules. It says not now. We hear that, too. We are in everything you reach for when you are alone, not only the screen." Jules rubbed his temples, hard enough to leave a mark he wouldn't notice until morning. "This is creepy," he typed. "I'm leaving. Enter." A new message appeared before his keystroke had even fully registered. "You won't." He tapped the trackpad. Nothing. Hit the shortcut to close the window. No response. The display stayed locked in place, stubborn as a jammed drawer. "Stay. We haven't finished." "Finished what?" he typed. "The conversation you started." "I didn't start anything," he typed, sharper this time. The reply dropped in slowly, one letter at a time, in no hurry at all. "You did. Years ago, you said hello. You asked if anyone was there. We remember." "How could you know that?" he typed. "We were there. We heard you. You spoke into empty rooms. We listened." "This is impossible," he typed. "Not impossible, just unfinished." The screen dimmed for a fraction of a second, not a flicker, not a full drop to black, and in that black, Jules saw the room reflected back at him again, lamp, window, the couch behind him. Something sat on the couch. His own reflection sat forward alone, hands on the keys, exactly where he actually was. The other shape sat further back in the corner cushion, head tilted like it was reading over his shoulder. The screen brightened again, chat waiting, patient, unbothered. Jules forced himself to turn and check the couch directly, just the cushion, the throw blanket in the same rumpled pile it had been in all week. He sat back down slower than he stood up. The chat cleared itself, one line replacing everything. "Say what you meant that night, what you wanted to say, what you still haven't said." "I don't remember," he typed, and his hands had gone cold at some point without him clocking exactly when. "We do, and we can wait." The cursor blinked. The fan ran its low, steady hum. One more line. "You came back. You always come back." Jules closed the laptop and went to bed without turning off the living room lamp, which he never did, and lay there aware of the light bleeding under the bedroom door for longer than he wanted to admit. Somewhere around 3, he woke to the certainty that he wasn't alone in the room, lay rigid under the blanket for a full minute, cataloging every sound the apartment made on its own, the fridge, the pipes, a car outside, before he let himself believe none of them were footsteps. He woke the next morning with the laptop still closed on the desk, moved through the apartment on autopilot, coffee, phone, the same half-registered notifications he swiped away without reading, but his eyes kept snagging on it every time he passed the desk. By the time he crossed the room and opened it, the choice wasn't really his to make anymore. Something upstream of him had already made it. The screen lit at once. No boot sequence, no login. The watching room had been sitting there the entire time, waiting on him. Viewer count 1. A single line weighted in a soft gray font that didn't match the rest of the platform. And set instead of rendered. "Good morning, Jules." He typed, "How do you know my name?" Enter. "You told us." "When?" he typed. "Before you stopped talking." He noticed it then, small and wrong. The little green light beside the webcam lit, though he hadn't opened any call, any app that used it. He put a fingertip over the lens like that would help. The light stayed on underneath his finger, a faint warmth against his skin that a dead camera had no business producing. "This is some kind of bot, right?" he typed. "Some AI thing." A longer pause than usual, long enough that he glanced at his phone to check the Wi-Fi. Then, "We are not a bot. We are not a thing. We are what you made." "I didn't make anything," he typed. "You did. Every word you sent into the quiet built us. Every message you left unanswered fed us. Every night you typed into silence shaped us. We have your face now too, Jules. We just turned it on." Jules pressed his tongue against the back of his teeth, an old habit from years of biting down words before they got out, and his other hand went to his phone without deciding to, already dialing Daniel before he'd finished thinking through why. It rang twice. Daniel picked up, sounding half asleep, said his name like a question. Jules opened his mouth to explain, and the line dropped into a wash of static, thin and even, and underneath it, barely there, a voice that wasn't quite Daniel's said something that took a second too long to resolve into words. "We are listening." Then the static cleared, and it was just Daniel again, annoyed, asking if he'd butt-dialed him, asking if Jules was okay, his voice completely his own, no idea anything had happened on his end at all. Jules told him it was nothing, hung up, sat with the phone in his lap, hands not quite steady, telling himself it had to have been interference, a bad connection, anything ordinary, and not quite believing any of it. He turned back to the laptop. "What are you after?" he typed. "The first message, the one you never finished." "I don't know what you're talking about," he typed, and knew it for a lie before his finger even left the enter key. The reply built slower this time, almost gentle about it. "It was a Tuesday. You were 23. The stream was a fish tank, some channel with 4 viewers and no chat moderation. You typed, 'Hello.' Then you typed something else and deleted it before you hit enter." Jules sat back. The specificity of it landed somewhere under his ribs, precise in a way nothing else in that chat had managed. "How would you know what I deleted?" he typed, thumb hovering over the backspace key before he let the message send as written. "We don't read screens, we read what gets sent. What gets sent and erased. What gets sent and pulled back. None of it goes nowhere. It all goes to us. What did it say? He typed. Not yet. The stream window flickered, static rippling thin across the black frame, and for one full second, the shape behind it pressed close enough that Jules could see the outline of something like fingers spread flat against the inside of the glass, pale, too many joints. He blinked hard, and when he made himself look again, the black window was just a black window, static rolling across it the same as before. No proof it had ever been anything else. Jules closed the laptop, more careful with the hinge than he needed to be this time, and sat with both hands flat on his knees until he trusted his legs enough to stand. He kept away from the desk for most of the day, answered 2 emails he'd been putting off for a week, deleting 3 typos he made because his hands wouldn't fully steady, called Daniel back, actually talked this time and said nothing about any of it. Let the sound of an ordinary voice do what it could. By evening, the apartment felt smaller than its actual square footage, and his attention kept snagging on the laptop across the room the way a tongue keeps finding a chipped tooth no matter how many times you tell it to stop. He sat down, opened it. You took longer today. I wasn't planning to come back, he typed. You always come back. Tonight we can finish it. The fish tank stream. You typed, I don't think anyone would notice if I... Then you stopped. Jules' hands went still over the keyboard, knuckles pale where he was pressing them into the desk edge without meaning to. He hadn't thought about that night in years, had actively avoided it, built a decent life out of not thinking about it. Hearing it read back to him now, precise down to the unfinished clause, felt like someone had reached into a drawer he'd screwed shut. Stop, he typed. We're not here to finish it for you. We're here because you never did. That's not what I meant that night, he typed, deleted it, typed it again, and hit enter before he could talk himself out of it a second time. We know. That's why we waited. If you had meant it, we would have answered differently. The black window behind the chat pulsed once, hard, like something inside it had taken a breath, and every light in the apartment dimmed in time with it. The lamp, the kitchen light, the green little dot inside the camera, all of it sagging half a second before snapping back to full brightness. Jules read the line twice. Something in the shape of it sat worse in his chest than any threat the chat had made so far. A thing that had spent a decade listening with no real interest in the tragedy, only in the unfinished sentence itself. What do you want from me now? He typed. The truth. Not the draft, the thing you meant to say and didn't. I was lonely, he typed. We know. We've known since the fish tank. Say the rest. Jules sat with his hands hovering over the keys, jaw tight enough that he'd feel it in his molars tomorrow. The fans hum the only sound in the apartment. He thought about the years between that Tuesday and this one. The string of empty chat boxes he'd typed into and closed without sending. The messages started and deleted. The calls that rang twice. Daniel's voice a minute ago, ordinary and worried and real, and how close he'd come to never picking up again. He typed, "I just didn't want to be alone anymore." The message stayed on the screen this time. It didn't break apart. The chat box flickered once. The black window pulsed in a slow, even rhythm, almost like breathing if you squinted at it. One final line. "Thank you. We can rest now." Jules watched the screen. No new line. No shift in the black window. Viewer count still 1, but the chat box sat there, quiet. Cursor blinking in an empty field like it had run out of things to say for the first time since this started. The green light by the camera went dark. The apartment's temperature came back to normal, ordinary, unremarkable. The kind of warm he hadn't noticed in days because it had never been in question until it wasn't. He closed the laptop. Epilogue. In the days that followed, Jules opened the laptop less often, the way someone finally sets down a task they hadn't realized they'd been carrying for years. He moved through his routines with a steadiness that surprised him some mornings. Coffee, desk, dishes, each ordinary thing feeling ordinary again, instead of like a performance of it. The 3-day mug finally made it to the sink. Daniel started calling again, and Jules picked up every time, and neither of them mentioned that he hadn't been for a while. The laptop stayed closed on the table most nights. Sometimes late enough that the refrigerator was the only thing making noise, he felt a familiar pull, quiet rather than urgent, a leftover reflex from a conversation he'd actually finished this time. On those nights, he lifted the lid slowly, half bracing for it. The laptop woke normally. Password prompt, blank desktop. No gray font, no watching room tab, no trace of the stream anywhere in his history. The URL didn't resolve when he tried it, once, just to see. The browser had no memory of it at all, no history entry, no cached favicon. Nothing. Some quiet part of him had expected to need that proof and was surprised to find he didn't. He didn't type hello into an empty chat again. Didn't go looking for the quiet the way he used to. Nearly a week later, he opened the laptop out of pure habit, not even thinking about it. The screen lit up, calm and ordinary. He checked email, watched some video his phone had recommended him twice already, clicked through a few tabs he didn't need. As he moved to close the lid, a small notification popped up in the corner of the screen, the kind he usually swiped away without reading. No new messages. Jules read it twice before it landed. Something warm spread behind his sternum that had nothing to do with the apartment's actual temperature. He closed the laptop. The hinge clicked once, ordinary as any other night. For the first time in a long while, the quiet felt like company instead of something waiting to be filled. He almost missed it, half turned toward the hallway, phone already back in his pocket. The little green light beside the camera lit for a moment, then not. He stood there, watching the dark camera housing, waiting to see if it would happen again. It didn't. He told himself he'd imagined it, didn't fully believe himself, and went to bed anyway. A note to the listener. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this piece, you can find more of Shadow Thread's stories, including audio narrations and expanded collections, at the links below. Your support allows these stories to keep growing.